Is the political centre of gravity moving away from France and Germany to Poland and Eastern Europe? Really? Is it wishful thinking because the West is in a mess and the Ukrainian war is closer and more threatening? The big boys are still big, but are their shoes big enough for Poland and the Easterners? Join me, Jan Darasz, for How We Got Here.
North and East Central European states have been gaining prominence lately, mainly due to their common purpose in deterring Russia, bolstering EU defenses and nurturing the transatlantic relationship.
Latvia has decided on an embargo when it comes to Russian products. I do not rule out that Poland will also take the appropriate initiatives here.
We have provided extensive support to Ukraine, and of course we expect that the use of those platforms and systems take place within the framework of international law. I can state that Ukraine has the right to defend itself inside and outside its territory, and we have called on Ukraine, naturally, to use those platforms and systems in line with international law.
The EU Eastern flank states are unanimous about their unwavering support for Ukraine.
We are doing and will be doing everything to bring closer the victory of light over darkness, the victory of good over evil, the victory of free people, which we will celebrate together, with electricity, with gas and without Rusnia.
Their stance has to a great degree been shaping the EU and its transatlantic policy, while Europe's carriage horses France and Germany seem out of breath, preoccupied with their domestic woes. France is battling the rise of immigration-skeptical sentiments in the population embodied by the National Rally. In the case of Germany, which is buckling up for elections of its own, violence perpetrated by migrants, as seen in the case of the Solingen mass stabbing last week, is also challenging the country's social and migration policies. The downslide in Macron and Scholz's popularity left a vacuum that Polish PM Donald Tusk aptly filled, asserting himself on the EU stage with his balanced approach to Washington and clear support for Ukraine. Poland's Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski spearheaded the redefinition of how the EU should take on the transatlantic relationship, bracing for change regardless of who will sit in the White House following the US November elections.
Our guest today is Wojciech Przybylski, analyst and editor-in-chief of Visegrad Insight. Well, welcome to the programme.
Thank you for having me.
Great to have you once more. This idea of the centre of gravity, the political centre of gravity moving towards Poland, Eastern Europe from the traditional centres, Germany and France. Is there any substance to this, or is this just a figment of analysts and commentators' imagination here in our region?
Well, until it happens, it can be only speculation. However...
And how would you measure that?
I would measure it by the personnel on the ground in Brussels, in the key institutions, and how this personnel is aligned and experienced in the job that the EU institutions require. And currently, now knowing already who are the nominees for the new commission and who is also the the high-level representative and vice president of the commission for external affairs, we know that the region is again gaining prominence. We also know a bit about the background of how this position has been so far fought for and how bold Central Eastern Europe has become, especially after Sweden and Finland has joined NATO. And the Nordics are now more than ever willing to also have an influence on the core European affairs, where they align with Central European understanding of geopolitical threats.
Is the we have this idea of the Baltic Sea, the Eastern European forests and terrain, and making a headway on the imaginary landscape, at least in Western Europe. What about the other way? You mentioned the idea of the key personnel in the key institutions. Are they able to press home the case for Eastern Europe, or are they going to be seduced by the Mediterranean, by the West and the Atlantic? visions.
Europe is a learning process, and it's full of surprises. That's the beauty of the project so far. And we've known that Eastern Europeans have been always, as of repeating the mantra, looking just in one direction. But I think they've been taking also educated steps in their past career. And we know Donald Tusk has learned also how to address, in his former position as the President of the Council, the concerns and the sensitivities of all of the member states in Europe. Now he's again a Prime Minister, but with that luggage, with this experience that comes with him, he is also offering a lot of trust. He is trustworthy for those partners. Similarly, many of the countries from the eastern flank countries, such as Romania, and you cannot say they are northern that much, except for the perspective on Russia. They are very aware of the acute problems that come from geographical direction of the south, from Africa, from the Middle East, because of their location. That creates a specific opportunity to have actually dialogue and to influence the agenda, but talking primarily to those two big players that used to be the strongest tandem, the Franco-German tandem, that is weakened, hopefully only temporarily, until it is reformed in their thinking and the attitude towards the future of Europe. Because their weakened position also does not mean that we are better off as Central Europeans.
Yes, we still tend to look to Germany to be it's been criticised for being inactive and criticised for being active.
Well, Germany, as any big political player, is usually to take the blame from whatever side. That's the side story of politics. Probably has also some bright moments we don't know about. But yes, Germany has been blamed for taking leadership, and it has been accused also from Poland for not taking leadership where it matters. And even today in the conflict of Russia invading Ukraine, we see that there are many skeptical voices calling for Chancellor Scholz to do much more that he's doing in support of Ukraine. We know also many other skeptical voices within Germany. They're looking inwards rather than having a global strategic overview in deciding the future of the budget. There are voices saying that Germany is considering limiting support for Ukraine instead of increasing it.
And it's important for Poland to be able to maneuver around the financial budgetary and Eurobond issues, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, the interesting part about Central European portfolios are those portfolios that Central European nominees hope to receive in the next Commission, is that most of them are economic portfolios, except for Kaja Kallas, who is the High Representative for External Affairs of the European Union. We have Mr. Dombrovskis, very experienced
Lithuanian.
Lithuanian Kubilius, former Prime Minister, very much engaged in Ukrainian affairs, also hawkish on Russia, but also hawkish in a way that he wants to see Russia transforming into a democratic state in the longer future and becoming part of a European solution. And we have three very strong political figures from Poland. The Prime Minister, Donald Tusk, Foreign Minister, who has been in Brussels as an MEP, Radek Sikorski, and Piotr Serafin, who has seen all the way through all the institutions. He's been in the back advising Donald Tusk on European policy, and he's been, I think, politically called him the gladiator, now considered as a strong candidate for a budget portfolio in the Commission. So yes, this comes as a power play from Central Eastern Europe, something that was unimaginable 5 or 10 years ago.
You mentioned earlier on about the disparity between, well, the strength, the still pertinent strength of Germany selling its goods into Eastern Europe. But so does that mean it's one thing to buy German goods, but it's another thing to invest in Germany? Has Poland and the Eastern European region generally does it have the industrial base to back up its diplomatic noise?
Well, it has a lot of industry. That's why we have so much investment from other Western European countries. It's not just Germany, it's also France, who considers French businessmen consider Poland and other Central European countries their key portfolio, oftentimes larger than any other global investment. But you're right to ask and to question whether we have enough of the accumulated wealth, the capital, the industrial base potential that is matching in terms of production capacity capacity and the weight on the global market. So clearly it's on the rise, it's not there, and there is much more attitude and agility, ambition than actual accumulation of these resources. We know from the LETA report, the report the Commission received before summer, that there is about 30 trillion accumulated euro on bank saving accounts across Europe. Most of them are in Germany. That just shows how much there is a potential and how much of this potential is wasted in terms of investment and in terms of possibility to drive Europe's future towards bigger prosperity and security.
Historically, the cultural influence has been from west to east. French culture, or Roman culture, you could say, then Italian culture, French, German culture spreading, educating this region, this kind of barbaric region in Eastern Europe. Is that coming back? Eastern Europe in general has been correct in its assessment of its position vis-a-vis Russia. Is this educating the West, or are they just kind of water off a duck's back?
I think education primarily works in terms of building the right attitude up to the age of 8. So I wouldn't put any bets on educating either direction, this country or that country. But it's true that the attitude and the attitude of certain political leaders in Western Europe is changing. We have heard a number of times that Ursula von der Leyen said Europe should have listened to the countries of Central Eastern Europe. That's definitely to our liking, to hear that we were right about something, and that Central Europe has actually something to offer in terms of intelligence, perspective, foresight, that the others should maybe have been taking for granted the world as it was, just seeing it as a blurred big picture rather than full of complexities and dynamism inside. And I think that's understanding this complexity, this multi-stakeholder dynamics and many puzzles is the advantage that Central Eastern European countries are bringing to the table when coming to common decisions on the EU level with other allies in the EU.
Does this mean we have a balanced vision, or more balanced vision of what Europe actually is? We've had this idea of Mitteleuropa, West and East, post-Soviet, West and East Europe, the Roman culture in the West, the Russian influenced culture in the East. Is this in terms of the philosophy of Europe? Is this a readjustment in how we think about our continent?
Well, that's, geographically speaking, this is putting certain countries on a map, and it's a two-way street again. On one hand, countries in capitals like Paris, people are learning of the significance of individual political actors such as Ukraine, but also Estonia or Lithuania, when they're producing vocal opposition to certain policies, or they're driving direction on China in terms of EU policy or industrial policy and security. So that learning process is happening, and I think Central Europe can be said to be put on a map, and that's been always a claim to have a place on the map as someone who is part of Central Europe, of a general European concept, but also has a very distinct experience that brings to the table. And then there is also a different attitude, I think, in these capitals to actually investing their time into conceptualizing who are they dealing with. We have seen how much time Prime Minister Sanchez, the first Spanish Prime Minister ever to travel to all of countries of Central Eastern Europe, including the Western Balkan countries, candidate countries, Ukraine, has never happened in the history of Spain, to invest so much political capital in defining relationship of those Western countries with those Eastern partners in Europe. We have seen that also from a number of other countries. We have seen the political initiatives under President Macron in his former term, when he's initiated this drive towards opening to Eastern countries, also inviting them in the European political community format to meet and discuss Europe as a whole. So I think it's hard to say that there is a definition of Central Europe, but it's definitely a place on a map that has a lot of potential for this battle of ideas, and that's what makes it interesting.
So yes, Europe always seems to be an ongoing work in progress. So, but thank you very much, Wojciech Przybylski, for coming onto our programme.
Thank you.
That's all we have time for today. Do join us next time for How We Got Here.